This shriveled raisin of a man is not only one of the most important characters in the Fallout universe, he's also one of the most well-written in any video game. That's because Robert Edwin House represents one of the toughest decisions you'll have to make in a game known for its decision-making. Even if you haven't played New Vegas, you should know by now that Mr. House has his fingerprints all over this franchise. Why? Well, because love him or hate him, this man, he kind of is Fallout. Think about it for a second. Can you think of any other character in Fallout's canon who's more responsible for so many iconic images in the Wasteland? The man is portrayed as the quintessential visionary. 1 part Steve Jobs, 1 part Elon Musk, and 2 parts Howard Hughes. And I killed him. Yes, I took a super sledge and barbarically exploded the brains of a 261-year-old genius who did so much for the technological advancement of mankind in Fallout's world, it would make any one of the people I just mentioned blush if he actually existed. I did it at the time because I thought it was the right thing to do, and I'm just going to assume that most of you agreed with me, since killing House is something of a creative pastime in this community. Look, I'm no moral authority on this topic or any other for that matter, but I am going to invite you to wonder with me today. Did the smartest man in the Wasteland deserve to go out like he did? Or did most of us simply commit a crime of passion that will ultimately leave Fallout's world just a little dimmer in the long run? After 5 years of making lore videos on YouTube, I've learned that it's best to avoid definitive statements. For instance, calling Mr. House the smartest man in the Wasteland just now. I'm gonna stand my ground on that one though, because while the Wasteland is home to a lot of smart people, the closest characters who might match him in terms of intellect would be the literal brains in jars at Big Mountain. But since they donated their brains to science before they were done with them, it can be reasonably said that Mr. House is the single most formidable human intellect in a post-war America. You don't predict the apocalypse using mathematical algorithms, save an entire city from annihilation, and live to tell about it 2 centuries later, unless you have a very special brain, and Mr. House knows that. Like most of those who find themselves in a position of power, the richest man in Vegas is inaccessible. Throughout the game, he communicates with us, the player, but always at an arm's length, using either computers or his Securitrons to issue his directives. House knows how to make a person feel small. 1, because he's a giant face on a monitor, and 2, because he's kind of a douche.
You aren't going to ramble on about the virtues of life out in the wastes, are you? They are, however, aptly named, for that's what you'd be out there, wasted.
House's demeanor might be off-putting, his words insensitive, his mustache offensive, but what happens when you put his past actions under the microscope? Is it enough to earn him the executioner's axe? When House resurrected Las Vegas from the ashes of the old world, it was a ruin, picked clean by scavengers and fought over by raiders. With the city already a battleground, he made alliances with the 3 biggest tribes and drove the competition out. For some, this is reason enough to force House to the guillotine when you first meet him. But if you consider the fact that every other major faction has done the exact same thing in their respective rise to power, no, we'll want a much better reason for killing House in the Lucky 38, otherwise we're essentially acting no different than those raiders we condemn and butcher on the regular. Maybe we can prove he's some sort of evildoer, someone who uses his influence to violate the rights of others. Well, that might prove challenging. You see, this entrepreneur is an old-school businessman, and what makes him unique in the world of Fallout is that he operates his wasteland settlement entirely on the basis of contracts and mutual agreements. You know, in all my playthroughs of Fallout New Vegas, I haven't found a single character who works directly for Mr. House and didn't sign on willingly. And the vast majority of his employees, as he calls them, are far better off for having done so. The people who work for him can quit at any time, and whether you're talking about the three families who were once tribals but now operate lavish casinos, or the residents of Vault 21 whose bizarre story led them to integrate into New Vegas society, it seems like this guy has never forced any person or group to work with him against their will. And I'll tell you what, from a lore perspective, that puts House a cut above most in terms of Wasteland leadership. This isn't to say bad things don't happen in Vegas. Bad things certainly happen in Vegas, and House has killed people, but it's nearly impossible to find anyone in the Wasteland who hasn't killed to protect life or property. Oh, and before we go blaming Mr. House for the poverty found around Vegas, I'm gonna stop right there and remind us that people only want to get into the Strip because of what House has built it into over the years. People outside the Strip are desperate because the Wasteland is a desperate place. Now, we can accuse House of not doing enough to help those who are less fortunate than him, but that's a whole different discussion. If not helping your neighbor is reason enough to kill a man, I think we're all in trouble. No, Vegas's biggest blemish is not Freeside. Instead, it's the fact that House gives his tribal friends way too much autonomy. That's right, too much freedom. Under contract, the King of Vegas isn't even allowed to step foot into his own casinos, and neither is his robot security force. This is what's to blame for all the shady things that go down on the Strip. Even with all this taken into account though, you might decide that House is still less controversial than those looking to depose him. It's almost unfair to compare House to other figures like Caesar, because since taking control of the Strip, House hasn't been playing the game of Wasteland Conqueror. By that I mean he doesn't have dreams of any earthly kingdom or empire. His head is in the stars.
Vegas is more than a city. It's the remedy to mankind's derailment. The city's economy is a blast furnace in which can be forged the steel of a new rail line running straight to a new horizon. What is the NCR? A society of people desperate to experience comfort, ease, luxury. A society of customers. Give me 20 years and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation. What I'm offering you is a ground floor opportunity in the most important enterprise on Earth. What I'm offering is a future for you and for what remains of the human race.
It's funny, House plays New Vegas like you would play Civilization if you were going for a science victory. Interstellar colonization is the goal, and in that way, he offers a very compelling long-term solution to mankind's current problem. The problem of a fragile species on a fragile planet. I feel like most of us end up killing House because we see him as a sort of dictator and therefore a threat to freedom-loving people, but all sole proprietors are dictators in their own ventures, right? Remember, there's no evidence to suggest that anyone is born into Mr. House's employment. Working with him is completely voluntary. I always just assumed that by siding with Mr. House, I was signing the death warrant on Wasteland democracy, but a vote for Mr. House doesn't necessarily mean a vote against the new California Republic. Quite the opposite, in fact. House's vision for the future is completely dependent on them, and that makes him the single most powerful ally the Republic has, period. During his dialogues, House might refer to himself as an autocrat, but he just isn't an autocrat, at least not in the way that Napoleon was, or Henry VIII or Caesar. When I killed Mr. House, I wasn't dethroning a dictator so much as I was killing a powerful CEO. But wait, that's not right. Apple's CEO doesn't command an army of killer robots, at least not yet he doesn't. House has to be held to a higher standard, right? Because he's not just dealing in bottle caps, is he? He's dealing in human lives. And this is where the scale starts to tip in the other direction, because who's to say House doesn't lose his mind one day and decide to use his unchecked power for ill? Does absolute power corrupt absolutely? When I was a kid, I ran the simulations. I can tell you for a fact that if a business tycoon is left to his own devices long enough, bad things will happen. There's this revealing moment in Fallout New Vegas where House, he slips up, and in doing so, shows us his true colors. The Brotherhood of Steel represents an organization in the Mojave that hasn't threatened or raised its hand against an independent New Vegas. They do, however, represent something that Mr. House finds abhorrent. A stray variable. Variable that, if left alone, might tamper with one man's perfect formula for the future. So, logically, the mathematician does what the mathematician does best. He simplifies his equation. Unfortunately for the Brotherhood, that means killing every living soul in Hidden Valley. People who stand for Mr. House will tell you that the Brotherhood of Steel were bound to attack Vegas eventually anyway, so a preemptive strike like this one, it's justified. While we could sit here and debate the moral implications of preemptive strikes, I'm going to sidestep the issue entirely and just say this. The moment House commits himself to an unprovoked attack like this one, he ceases to be just another Wastelander defending his property and the interest of his employees. He becomes something more, something that might be terribly dangerous if left unchecked. Let's not forget, this shriveled raisin was once the greatest salesman in Old World America. He does an impeccable job of selling us on a dream of the stars. It's tempting. House might very well be the perfect human specimen, but if you believe that humans are inherently flawed and that even the best of us fall short of fully reliable, well, maybe unchecked power in anyone's hands is just a bad idea. There's a great quote from the British philosopher Alan Watts, and it goes like this: "The tyrant is the man who is allowed to commit crimes against you." By that definition, House is a tyrant, even if he hasn't committed a crime against you yet. The mere fact that he could and has no accountability if he does, well, you can see how that could be a problem. As another great philosopher once said, no one man should have all that power. So, back to the original question. Does the smartest man in the Wasteland deserve the death sentence? Well, we all have to decide for ourselves. But if that answer isn't good enough for you, the closest thing the Fallout universe has to any godly authority would be the developers who made it. And, well, curiously enough, they decided to weigh in. Apparently, killing the Wasteland's greatest mind will not net you any good karma. Don't be quick to mistake that for an endorsement, though. If you don't at least dethrone Mr. House from his seat atop New Vegas, the game judges you harshly for it. The ending has Ron Perlman straight up accuse you of siding with the tyrant. The decision to keep Mr. House around will depend heavily on whether you personally think the Wasteland has room for another social experiment. The game manual itself says as much. If the player supports Mr. House, she is supporting the New Vegas Libertopia, a place where the strong rule unfettered for as long as they stay strong, and where the weak are continually trampled underfoot. But it's a place where Mr. House wants you to dream, that someday you could be one of the strong. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Some complex thoughts on a complex choice in a complex game. If you did end up killing Mr. House, try not to feel too bad about it. His little game of Kerbal was likely doomed to fail anyway because, well, you know, aliens. I've been Josh. We'll catch you later.